The Georgia governor race is one of the closest elections in the midterm elections this year. Former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is slightly ahead in the polls against healthcare CEO Rick Jackson. On the other hand, Jackson's campaign announced an $87 million ad spend that will increase his lead in spending. Jackson is running on freezing property taxes and college tuition, as well as phasing out state income tax. On the other hand, Bottoms is running on expanding Medicaid, building houses quicker, and giving more funding to Georgia schools. Since governor elections are won and lost by the popular vote, it's important to appeal to every single voter in Georgia. Who are you throwing your support behind? Personally, I support Rick Jackson, but let me know in the comment section down below who you think is going to do more for the state of Georgia. Now, as I mentioned, Rick Jackson isn't doing very well in the polls. It's around 54% plus, depends on who you ask, for Bottoms to win the Georgia election. Now, this is all subject to change. It really depends on how well that ad funding goes for Jackson, how well these candidates are able to campaign, but there's a reason why I'm putting my support behind Rick Jackson, even though I think that his campaign isn't the most competent. It's because Bottoms is coming off of a mayor of Atlanta position. And I live in Atlanta, I go to college in Atlanta, and I can definitely attest that Atlanta is not better off under Bottoms. It's not better off under any sort of Democratic leadership, because there is no good sense of leadership. There is not improvement that Atlanta needs to see happening in Atlanta. Sure, you can point to the mass mandates and the spending plans that were implemented under Bottoms, but the thing is, I'm conservative in nature, and I think anyone who is even remotely conservative should be throwing their support behind Jackson, because under Jackson you get closer to sensible fiscal policy. You get freezes on property taxes. You get the phasing out of the income tax, and these are things that help Georgians on the day-to-day. And this is not any sort of endorsement of Jackson. Like, I'm not just saying this because I'm being paid by him or anything. I don't take any money from these candidates, but I'm of course a conservative for a reason, and that includes fiscal conservatism. So why isn't Rick Jackson doing well in the polls? Well, he actually got his support from Trump. Trump officially endorsed him, even though the endorsement happened in a sort of daft ceremony where he went off topic talking about Iran and other things, and there's an incident where someone behind Trump was mocking his mannerisms. The thing is, Trump isn't very popular domestically. He's definitely below 50%. He's hovering in the 40% range, perhaps 45, 47 was where he was at the last time I checked. And so his endorsement of Jackson isn't making him surge in the polls as would happen if this were taking place in 2025, for example, where people were fresh off the election and really valuing what Trump had to say. However, it can't be understated that $87 million is a huge amount of money, and I think the 2020 elections as a whole are going to be pretty rough for Republicans. You can argue that they deserve to be trounced in these elections. I wouldn't totally disagree with you, but Jackson is a semi-competent person, and he definitely reminds me of Trump when he first took office, or when he first ran for office in 2016. You have this outsider candidate. You do have no political experience. He is active in business, and that's where he gets his money from, and he's able to use that money to fund himself to the point where you don't have to worry as much about him taking money from various lobbies and being subject to the will of these lobbies, as is extremely common in our political scene today. And so I'm not going to say that I have faith in Jackson to save Georgia or anything like that. I've learned my lesson. I'm not gonna endorse candidates like that at all unless I personally know the candidate. But when we look at Bottoms as a candidate compared to him, the difference is like night and day. And I certainly would not want to see Bottoms in charge of an entire state, especially not a swing state like Georgia, given that the governorship of a state matters very much so when it comes to the presidential elections as well. 2028 is not very far off, and so given that Georgia is going to be a crucial state for at least the next 50 years, it's important to instill as many Republicans as possible, even if they aren't the best, in order to ensure that competent presidential candidates are able to have an easier time winning their elections, amongst other various issues. And so that's all I've got for you guys today. Take care. God bless you all.